You want a surefire sign that you've been married for like ever? You wake up and you've got like the same shirt. Yeah.
Few moments later.
We're back in the car today, which means only one thing. It's another episode of Remzo Takes a Drive. Remzo, why are you getting your car washed for 2 days in a row? Well, my friend, the answer is simple. Because I have the unlimited car wash pass, which they keep raising the rate for. But I'm not getting extra value each time they go ahead and raise the price. So guess who's getting their car washed for the second day in a row? This guy. Welcome back to the channel, guys. As always, as soon as I'm like super in the mood to go out and film something and I'm out and I finally got to the destination, what ends up happening is they go ahead and put up a fence to one of the most beautiful scenic overlooks out in Enspirata, and my microphone is dead. So just gotta bear with me on this one. But today I went ahead and had coffee with a really bright young man. He's a college grad. He's about to go into the exotic car industry, and he's got a ton of questions about personal branding, getting started in sales, understanding how to start marketing himself. And it was really kind of interesting for me because he's at a point in my career which was at the beginning. It's where everyone was. It was at the beginning. And as I look at that and I remember where I started 11 years ago, we were dealing with a lot of the same situations that everyone has to deal with when they're trying to look for how to start their career on the right foot. Am I going to the right place? Am I framing my reputation and my resume in the right corner? Am I talking to the right people? So it was a lot of that, but more importantly, it kind of reminded me of like where I was at the beginning, and it was a stage where I didn't know I was going to go into the marketing field. I thought I was going to go into a completely different industry. So when I finally realized that this was the profession that I wanted to be in, I really had to start from scratch because I didn't have a communications degree. I had a couple of internships, and this was kind of a pivot for me. So what I kind of want to talk about today is if I could go back 11 years from now and give myself 5 pieces of advice to how to start as a young marketer, how would I do that? So that's what we're going to go ahead and break down here. So if I had to go ahead and start from the beginning and give myself some advice for the very first year of my career, it would be this: pick a single skill and just build off of that. I think a lot of marketers want to go ahead and instantly be good at everything, which it's great to go ahead and try and figure out what it is you're naturally more inclined to do. But I came into marketing because I wanted to be a journalist. And from there, I realized that journalism doesn't pay a lot. Not to, get dour on the journalists and the reporters out there, but I had a really good skill for writing and I needed to make money. So quickly, I discovered copywriting, and copywriting was basically everything I wanted to do. I was getting paid to write about something interesting. Sometimes it wasn't always that interesting, but I was getting paid to be creative. I was getting paid to write, whether it was blogs, emails, web pages. I went ahead and just doubled down on that. But even before that, what I started getting really good at immediately, and that's what kind of pushed me into everything else, was social media management. When I was in college, I would go ahead and create and manage social media pages for people who were starting businesses, who were running for office. That gave me kind of like the base trade. And from there, I started to really realize what I wanted to get good at, and that was writing. Writing led to copywriting, and everything I do is built off the basis of having that trade, which is copywriting. Maybe for you it's videography, maybe for you it's social media management or SEO. Wherever your passion is in terms of what you can actually start working with, if you start finding that base skill and building off of that, that's going to go ahead and make everything so much easier for you, because you can pivot one way or another, but you always have that good fallback where you're going to be the actual expert on the spot. Just pulling out a sorry not sorry out in Inspirata. Gonna grab some gas now. So I'm about to sound like I just went ahead and contradicted myself, but part one, the first part was find a base skill and just build off of that. Part two is basically contradicting that, but I promise there's a reason why. Lesson number two is learn enough to be dangerous at everything, but don't feel like you have to be a master at everything. I don't think there was a single job where I took once I finally got into marketing where I actually felt like they actually kept to what I was hired to do. So if I was hired to produce a podcast, guess who ended up running the paid ads? If I was hired to do paid ads, guess who ended up writing all the emails? If I got hired to do X, they ended up piling A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And sometimes you just have to deal with it, especially if you're dealing with older employers or clients who really don't know what anything is. And they end up just thinking that because you know how to use a laptop or your iPhone, that you're suddenly going to be a master at everything. But it's also good too, because when I worked at companies such as Intermarkets, we had people who had to be down for, sickness or a wedding or whatever. And guess what ended up happening? Their responsibilities ended up getting absorbed by me and other members of my team. So it would be me having to do the job of 5 people, or me and one of my coworkers having to do the job of like 20 people, because that's just how it is sometimes. So do I know how to do paid ads? Yes. Am I a paid ads expert? No. Do I know how to build a website? Yes. Am I the person that you really want to hire to build your website? No. That's why I hire people and I work with people who are experts at that. So it's good to know a little bit of everything, so that way you've always got your bases covered when life happens. But don't feel the pressure to have to go ahead and take on the mastery of a role that you really don't ever see yourself doing ever again if you had a choice. 5 while I pump some gas and Juliana goes to get herself some coffee. Take on the weird clients. You might think that that's kind of like an odd thing to say, but seriously, like when I was starting out, I just needed everybody. I worked with nail salons. I worked with children's education toy companies. I worked with, I kid you not, a Malaysian plastic surgery clinic. I went ahead and wrote all the copy for their website in English because they were trying to get Europeans and Americans to come work with them. So a lot of them were fun clients. Some of them weren't. And while I try and specifically focus on startups and nonprofits, I pretty much had examples in every industry. And even now, I've worked with celebrities. I've worked with jiu-jitsu gyms and barber shops and everyone in between. Just because you have a specific niche that you want to work in doesn't mean that, especially starting off in your career, you need to be picky. So I'd say go ahead and work with everybody you possibly can, rack up that experience, get those testimonials, add to your portfolio, show that no matter where you are, you're the most qualified person who's willing to work and willing to learn, and you always focus on what's important for your clients. So lesson number 3, don't be afraid to take on the stuff that you might think is a little odd. It might be not something that you're totally familiar with, but trust me, those are going to be the case studies later that you reference in every interview you end up doing for the rest of your life. I still talk about the Vietnamese nail salon in Toledo, Ohio I worked with when I was at the Washington Times, and they cut salaries and I had to go on Fiverr to make extra money during 2020. So those are just the ones that you've got to get comfortable with. Okay, point number 4, people are going to expect you to be a miracle worker. You're going to come in and they're going to say you need to bring X amount of dollars before the end of the month. You need to go ahead and bring X number of leads. The whole company depends on you reversing the trend of everything, and everything is on you, and if everything fails, it's your fault. Those people are there, and they're going to expect you to be a miracle worker. But the difference between a good marketer and somebody who's not going to last in this field for a while is if you can come in and you get hired for one job, but you can identify the other problems that your client or your employer is dealing with, you're going to have like job security forever. hey, I know you hired me to go ahead and set your emails up, but your website isn't SEO optimized. You're not doing any social media. Hey, I know that you're using ChatGPT to go ahead and create your graphics, but it would be really good to use Canva AI for this. Or, hey, you've set up no KPIs. We actually need to measure against something. If you can be the person to be a solution-driven leader instead of just somebody who's paid to do the job and you're just doing the job and you're letting everything else that you see slide because you're the professional. You know what right looks like. They don't. You're going to be fine. So, yeah, you don't have to be the miracle worker. Set clear expectations up. One, so that way they can't blame you for everything. But two, it shows that you have your client's best interest at heart. All right, guys, I'm here in the parking lot of the beautiful M Resort in Henderson, and this place is really sentimental to me because this is the hotel and resort and casino that my wife and I stayed at a couple years ago when we decided to finally move out to Southern Nevada, and it was one of the best decisions possible. And the reason why we're here today is because lesson number 5 is as your marketing career starts to kind of kick off, you got to anticipate that every 2 to 3 years on average, what you do is ultimately going to change pretty drastically. I went from managing social media accounts to being a copywriter to being a director of outreach for a startup to eventually taking over marketing for an entire organization and being a one-man band before going into digital publications and having to deal with the AI craze when it started, where all my copywriting clients disappeared and I had to get into videography. And then before we knew it, I was in the fractional CMO space. A lot of that might sound really overwhelming, but the reason why we're out here right now is because I want to show you that I rolled with the punches, I dealt with the process, and it hasn't always been easy, but my life is a million times better. I'm happier, and I feel like I'm actually excited for the future compared to a lot of people that just panicked and they're out of it. So expect change, embrace it, take on the new challenges, and don't think that everything is doom and gloom, because sometimes the challenges that are going to test you the most are going to result in the biggest changes for the better. I am back home, about to retire for the night. Hope this was helpful. Hope if you're somebody who is a new marketer or you're starting any career, I think any of these lessons could go ahead and apply to you. So if it was helpful, please go ahead and let me know in the comments, drop a like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you.